You could call Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance a flaming train wreck, but let's be honest. At least that train was worth a damn at some point. Coming out in the middle of one of gaming's most epic release lulls, Dark Alliance is a 4-player dungeon crawler that was pretty well positioned and could have been massively popular. Its early trailers and gameplay footage showed promise, and it was obvious that the publishers were spending a boatload of money on the marketing campaign alone. Turns out they should have saved some of that money for the actual game. Like a DM who spends all his time buying miniatures and accessories and forgets to come up with an actual campaign, Dark Alliance promised big and delivered a lackluster sleeper that will have its players heading for the door as soon as he gets up to pee. Despite its pedigree as the successor to some pretty entertaining games from the early 2000s, Dark Alliance 2021 is a sloppy, unpolished, and most importantly, incredibly boring mess of a game. We can't emphasize boring enough. 20 minutes into my very first dungeon, I found myself literally nodding off, completely unengaged and starting to lapse into the kind of coma you'd only expect after 5 hours in some MMO grindfest. The visuals for Dark Alliance are uninspired, to say the least. And we say this as a team that's usually not too hung up on graphics in general. The game looks and sounds like an unpolished early Xbox 360 release, the kind you'd find in the bargain section for $10 a month after it dropped. Audio quality is passable, but only just barely. The soundtrack is trite and unoriginal. Some parts, like the narration, are done pretty well, but when it comes to things like NPC dialogue, most of it's hammy, poorly done, and pretty repetitive, especially when some random goblin clone is swearing at you with exactly the same lines of oddly acted curse words that all 250 of his predecessors used. The controls for Dark Alliance are a hot mess. They're unresponsive, unintuitive, and they do nothing to help combat. The game just flat out ignores control inputs almost as often as not, which is a real blast when you're in the middle of tight melee combat, or it just stops in the middle of a charged range attack and vanishes. Like, the game just stopped paying attention to inputs. Even when the game is listening to you, attack delays and animation locks are so prevalent that they turn combat into a slow, sloppy, and all-around annoying mess. The player's attack direction is locked to camera angle, which is an absolute disaster when you're fighting more than one target, and it makes engaging multiple enemies irritating in the best circumstances. Melee combat in particular is supposed to be largely combo-based, so much so that the game actually tracks your combo total as an entire team and displays it quite prominently, but the combos themselves are ineffective beyond belief. At anything besides the lowest difficulty setting, all of the enemies are damage sponges that bring back memories of Division 1 at launch. It takes forever to whittle down even the most basic trash mobs. The combat system itself is unrefined and it was clearly not tested, leading to scenarios where a move in the middle of a combo will animation lock the player, knock the enemy out of the range of the next attack in that combo, and then it just leaves the player standing there staring at an enemy who's now 10 feet away, combo broken. At no point in any game should you be able to hit yourself with combo breakers. The game's stamina system is strange, to say the least. Penalties are applied to it based on party size, so a solo player never has any reason to be concerned with their stamina level. You don't even have to watch it. Someone in a group, though, is going to be wheezing like the chubby kid in gym class within a few seconds of a fight. Not only is this obnoxious, but it dramatically slows down the pace of combat in a game where combat is already excruciatingly slow and unbelievably monotonous. To top it all off, the AI is painfully stupid. Enemy aggro is broken, and the various monsters barely acknowledge your presence until you're within what amounts to arm's reach. It's quite common for the mobs to be completely unresponsive to ranged attacks, no matter how much damage you're doing to them. Light plink attacks? Must be the wind. Giant charged attacks? Strong breeze today. They will literally stand there and let you wail on them as often as not. I mean, guys, come on. It's a D&D game. This locked cast limited cosmetic system is trash. To quote some of the many comments we saw online ripping into this game, I play D&D to play my character, not someone else's. And that's true. Would it have killed them to allow the players some minimal customization options to start with? Or maybe not have player appearance tied to whatever you got dressed in the dark clown gear you happen to come across, especially early on? At this point though, it doesn't matter what endgame looks like, what the loot system has in store for people, or what any of the other game systems can do. At its core, Dark Alliance is a boring, repetitive, bullet spongy, unimaginative mess of a game that feels like a $10 title from 20 years ago. Every single member of ICG has already submitted their Steam refund request. Avoid this trash at all costs. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you next time.